of Pritchett Maharaj as a guideline. What is he concerned with? Why is he focusing on this? He's focusing on, this is amazing, this is inconceivable. And remember, you're going to be dealing with two inconceivable things. Agasara, attaining Sarupya liberation, having the same form as Narayan in Vaikuntha, and you're going to be dealing with why the cowherd boys are talking about something that happened a year ago as if it happened that very day. So we'll delve into that in our next class. So just don't read these statements by Shukadeva and Pritchett Maharaj and just pass them by. They're highlighting, amidst the ocean of unlimited Krishna Katha, they're highlighting various aspects. So before you're quick to freestyle and just, well, what about this and what about that? At least focus on the aspects that Pritchett Maharaj's dialogue with Shukadeva Goswami presents. Especially since amidst such questioning by Pritchett Maharaj, Shukadeva Goswami is going to lose it. He's going to get lost in ecstasy. So as I explained this morning, Pritchett Maharaj was prepared for that. He's a Kshatriya, he's an administrator. He knows Shukadeva Goswami is Mahayogi. He's a fully accomplished bhakti yogi. If he talks about Krishna, he can lose track any moment of the material world. So how did Pritchett Maharaj prepare? Do you remember?
He played the drums and different music.
No, he had his son, Janamejaya, have some musical instruments for kirtan nearby. And he also had Narada Muni and Vyasadeva. They were all helping out making some kirtan to bring Shukadeva into consciousness of his surroundings. Yes.
Very much. As Kali Yuga progresses and things get more dangerous and risky in the world at large, what is the vision of a devotee when it comes to dealing with dangers and risks? Sometimes the mentality could be that if I just surrender to Krishna, he'll take care of it, or that this is just a result of my previous karma, so I should just tolerate it.
What is the result?
Say, for instance, if one comes across some incident or some security risk or something.
There's a risk, and then there's something that actually happened.
Yes.
You can't say the risk is the result so much of your karma, because you still have a chance with your intelligence to do the best thing for Krishna's service. But the bottom line is, just by having a material body in this material world, you're in danger. As Lord Brahma himself says, Param Param Yadiparam Natesham. This world at every step is danger. If we think otherwise, we're blinded by illusion. So amidst the ocean of dangers, we pick out this danger, that danger, but we're just swimming in dangers. The more we realize that, the more realistic and practical we become. So that doesn't mean you don't use your intelligence. You just say, well, it's a world of dangers, no need for me to consider any safekeeping measures. You do the best you can. You have to protect your body as best you can, even though it's doomed for destruction. But, for example, if someone attacks you, you just don't say, oh, I'm not the body. Oh, this is my karma. You defend yourself as best you can because your body is meant for Krishna's service. You're not protecting yourself just for the sake of protecting your sense gratification. You're protecting your body because it's meant for Krishna's service. You do the best you can to protect it. If you fail, well, you've done your best. And ultimately, they'll all fail in protecting this body. So yes, we have to do our best with our intelligence, how to safeguard. Not that you don't check the smoke alarms where you're residing, because Krishna will take care. There was one sadhu in Braj, and outside his little residence, he kept a stick. And so devotees asked him, why is this stick outside your little hut? He said, it's a tiger stick to protect in case a tiger attacks. So the devotee said, well, how's a stick going to prevent you from a tiger on the rampage? He said, look, you do the best you can, and then you can say you depend on Krishna. This is the best I can do. Anything else? We'll go to this side, let's see. Yes?
Dave,
Just sing out. I want to hear you another mic. Okay.
I had a question regarding words, and I've heard for devotees, words, and for everyone, words are so powerful. They carry so much with them. I'm wondering how I can balance being straightforward, bold, truthful, but also filtering my thoughts and words in this regard.
Well, you can remember what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita about the austerity of speech. That you don't speak agitating words. You speak words that satyam priyahitam, that will benefit others. And you speak according to Shastra. So it's not that in your practical dealings at home or at work, you only just quote verses. But at least we all can remember not just go out of our way to speak words that agitate and disturb. During the time of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, whose disappearance day is coming up in a couple of days, there was an anecdote about how there was a devotee in the ashram who was always correcting and chastising everyone and causing a bit of a stir. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur asked him, you know, it's a great austerity to have to correct someone. I have to do it because it's my service, but let me tell you, it's a great austerity. Why are you so eager to take on such austerity? So you know the old saying, loose lips sink ships. The tongue can be very slicing. And you say things that years later someone can't forget. So it's a great austerity actually to control the tongue. Of all the senses, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, the tongue is the most difficult to control. It's so easy, right? Just to lash out. You. But if you remember that verse from Bhagavad Gita and undertake the austerity of the tongue, bite your tongue if you have to, and then say what you want to say in a way that doesn't reverberate in the person's consciousness negatively for 50 years. And then there's the positive, which is a way to avoid the negative. Think of what you can say that will uplift. Sometimes if it's your service, you have to correct. But always remember the other side, to uplift. So you probably heard it before in managemental circles, that instead of catching someone doing something wrong, catch them doing something right, and don't let them forget it. So that's a good practical instruction, especially when it comes to glorifying devotees. You know, be like the honeybee. Don't be like the fly. And once you get into the habit, once you get into the groove of doing this, life becomes so much better. Always looking for things that you can express gratitude for. It's like I was talking to some devotees, aspiring devotees, up-and-coming devotees from Los Angeles today. And they were telling me, oh, just to be here in nature, the birds, the breezes, the trees. And I said, oh, yeah, that's right. We take it for granted here. But they were just overwhelmed. You know, they're coming from the concrete jungle. So by hearing their gratitude, I also increased my gratitude. Oh, yeah. Listen to the birds. I started asking about the birds to other devotees. Gadai Garanga Prabhu was telling me that the tui birds, I just found out they make a whole range of sounds. I thought it was only one sound. So I've been based in New Zealand for 30 years. I didn't know tui made a whole range of sounds. But everyone else knows, huh? So I became even more grateful because of their expression of gratitude. And of course, everyone is gushing with gratitude about the prasad. So the more we look for persons doing something right, the more rich our life becomes. If it's your service, of course, you have to sometimes point out faults. But don't relish doing that. Now I'm the one who's got the position. I can find fault in you. Everyone wants to be inspired, right? Everyone wants to feel that their life is worthwhile. They want to feel their life has significance. That's the most material happiness experts say. The most important ingredient in your happiness is that you feel significant in the universe. So if you know how to make others feel significant, it's an unforgettable experience for them. Just what seems to be the little things. Expressing gratitude. I was speaking in Melbourne about this, about gratitude. You were there? No, you weren't there. So, one devotee's wife made lunch one day for me and other devotees, and I sent a message back to her husband. It was very good. And before he left to take the message back, and take all the pots and whatever containers back to her, he said, I never say that to her. I said, well, I think it's a good time to start. So the next day I happened to see her, and 3 days later I happened to see her, and she came up to me and said, Maharaj, what happened to my husband? every day he's just saying thank you. I was given the example in Melbourne, and then we'll hear from Arcita about this topic, this question. It's very important. I was in Melbourne, and I was at New Govardhan in Australia, and I had to go pick up my lunch from someone's house. So because only the lady of the house was home, the cook, I just went to the door to get the lunch, and then I would take off. And so, although I was right at the door, I looked in and saw the living room, and to me it looked very tidy. So I said to her, "You really keep a clean house." And she burst out crying. I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? And then, amidst the tears, she explained, "I've been cleaning like this for 20 years and my husband never notices." That's a simple thing. I'm grateful for Arcita Prabhu's presence.
All right, well, Maharaj, it sounds from your presentation that we need some husband training in this class.
Basic human behavior.
What do we have, a bunch of Neanderthals for there? All right, next time I'll bring a prepared course for how to deal with a significant other. But I'm sure when men speak about women, they find the faults and vice versa. But like Mark said, look for the good side. You can't give what you don't have. If you're not a happy person, you can't share happiness. And we should all want to be happy. Srila Prabhupada said, if you have taken to the path of Krishna consciousness and you are unhappy, morose, you're doing something wrong. There's nothing wrong with the process of Krishna consciousness. It's our application and the baggage that we bring to the process. That's what's holding us back. And because we're not happy, we don't feel properly situated, then we take it out on others. That's the natural tendency of a conditioned soul. The conditioned soul has a tendency to exploit others. That's an animalistic tendency. A human being, what to speak of a devotee, always wants to do good for others. By your work, by your wealth, by your speech. So if you approach each other with that mood, whether it's husband, wife, or guru, disciple, then that mood it permeates our relationships. You know when somebody's your well-wisher. If you don't, you're sleeping at the wheel. So when your well-wisher tells you something that may not be immediately palatable, you accept it. Just like many devotees you'll see in Prabhupada's memories. They were ecstatic when Prabhupada chastised them. Sometimes heavily Prabhupada chastised. Like one devotee told me personally, he said to Prabhupada, he had done something really wrong, and he said, "Prabhupada, I guess it's Krishna's mercy." And Prabhupada said, "No! Not Krishna's mercy. It's your foolishness, your stupidity." And that devotee felt ecstatic. Prabhupada just pulled the rug from under him, and he felt ecstatic. So it's like that. When somebody's actually your well-wisher, whether it's a spouse, or a parent, or a boss, or whatever, you will accept that supposedly negative feedback as nectar. Because you understand this person cares about you. Most of us experience that with our parents growing up. Well, maybe not all of us, but some of us. My mother was really heavy. She was a school teacher. Really heavy. She was a heavy one. The father was like good cop, bad cop. Mom would chastise and he'd run to daddy. But we knew she was our well-wisher. She had our best interests at heart. So we accepted it. Up until puberty, and it was like, falls on a deaf ear. So yeah, that's the main thing, is what is your motivation for speaking in any situation? whether you're giving a class or instructing your child or interacting with a coworker or boss or your Guru Maharaj, what is your motivation? And that's what you'll bring to the table. And the other person will know instinctively. If they're not sleeping at the wheel, they'll know. And vice versa. When somebody approaches you, you'll know where they're coming from. And then it makes things a lot more pleasant. But the only person we can really work on is ourselves. And one of the things that causes this problem also is oversensitivity. I know in ISKCON I've met God brothers who 30 years later, they're still remembering something that somebody did to them in the ashram. And I'm like, what? You're kidding me. 30 years ago, this person said something or looked at you in a way. I mean, come on, grow up. If you've grown in 30 years, don't you think that person has also grown in 30 years? Why are you remembering what happened 30 years ago or even 30 minutes ago? Just let it go. That's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, forget the past, it sleeps forever. And trust no future, however pleasant. But live in the present. So in the present, you're always Krishna conscious and always happy and always interacting nicely with others. And there's no problem, even if they don't reciprocate in either.
I have a story to tell which Arcita Prabhu has given me permission to say about it. And this shows how glorification can sometimes get you in trouble.
Are we live casting, by the way? I hope not.
All right, I won't say it.
No, I'm just kidding, Mark.
He had invited me over to his house, his apartment, for lunch. And at that time, he's not married now, but at the time he was married, and let's say the other half was losing the plot with her Krishna consciousness. I didn't know that, of course. So we had lunch, and then I sat down. He had a two-seater couch, and he was seated at the desk, because his house was also his BBT office, but he's down at the desk on the phone talking to someone had called up. And so there I am on the two-seater couch, which was less space than like this, and all of a sudden, the young lady plops herself down next to me. So I was like, whoa! I didn't say that, but So I looked over at Arcita, who was on the phone, and of course he wasn't going to say anything, but I could see he was turning beet red. So I thought, quick, what do I do? This young lady, she's purposely not following any etiquette, just showing this is the new liberated style. And so there she is, right next to me. And so the first thing I thought, let me glorify her husband. I said, Arcita Prabhu is such a wonderful devotee. You really married the right person. He has such wonderful qualities. And then I got up, and either I got up or she got up. 1 month later, she started an international incident on social media and this, that, the other. Devamrita Swami has insulted me by saying I have no value and that the only value I have is my husband. She started a whole avalanche. And so senior devotees and me, we discussed, and they said, look, just go apologize to her so she just stops this. So I actually went to her and apologized to her. Of course, other ladies in the Los Angeles community were saying, if you had said that to me, I would have been so happy. But it just shows you sometimes how you can try to do the right thing and you still get in trouble. And I knew, I didn't ask him to do anything about it because that would have made the situation tough for him. So I just bit the bullet, as they say. I'm sorry. I didn't say Mataji because she didn't like that. But she caused a whole stir about it. So, if you're going to push on in Bhakti Yoga, you have to know that there's going to be sometimes misunderstandings. And often the easiest way is to end this crisis is just, I'm sorry. Now, interestingly, when devotees in India somehow heard about this, there was an uproar. Wow. What are they doing to Maharaj? He did the right thing. So it depends on your cultural perspective. Or your spiritual perspective. Anyway, he's a single man. Make a long story short. All right, any other questions? We need to answer our questions shorter so more people. Nitai, your second time today, you're asking a question. Very good.
Would you happen to know how Radharani's gem, the Shamantaka gem that she gets from Krishna by Balaram, from Shankachuta, how it ends up back with Surya and then comes back down to the Yadus and ends up in a whole new pastime, or if it's even the same gem?
It ends up on Srimati Radharani. From Balaram it went to Madhamangal. And then from Madhamangal it went to Srimati Radharani. So Krishna gave it to Balaram. That's all.
A number of chapters later, it appears again in the Krishna book.
Krishna's Shamantaka jewel is eternal. It appears and then goes here and then goes there, but it's always present. The Shamantaka jewel that Radharani wears likes to make friends with the Kaustuba jewel that Krishna wears. They're close friends. A question for Arcita, Prabhu? Yes, Glenn?
Can you wait for the mic, please? My hearing is not so good, so without the mic, I probably won't be able to ask it.
Just in relation to Krishna's pastime, he goes into the mouth of Yogeshwara to follow after the Gaudiya boys. So the Leela is arranged in such a way that, he has a problem that he has to deal with, right? So does he experience a bit of doubt in himself and his ability to overcome this like insurmountable challenge? And does it also, second question, does...
One question.
Okay. Thank you.
We started this up this morning, yeah. Well, I'll just say that Krishna's pastimes, all of his pastimes, not just that one, in those pastimes, Krishna is the lead actor. It's like an actor on a stage. The director is Yogamaya, but the director is following a script which is written by Krishna. So Yogamaya is directing Krishna and all the other actors within the Leelas according to a script that's provided by Krishna. So it seems, and Krishna plays his part perfectly. And because we're, to the degree we're in illusion, we don't understand that. Maya Java Nikachana, as Vinkuti says. Allah to say Mudadisha. Just as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized, when Krishna comes and performs his Leela perfectly, according to the script that he wrote, we become confused because it seems like Maharaja said this morning, Bhagavan, how can you have doubts? How can you have any problems? But it's part of the script, it's part of the play that he's performing. And he accepts the problem and scratches his head and then he solves the problem. Because that's what's in the script.
And that's his enjoyment. Vilas, enjoyment. So as we said, as Arcita Prabhu reminded us, as we discussed this morning, you like problem solving. You like crossword puzzles and Scrabble. They say Scrabble. It gave you a sense of Accomplishment, right? I won't tell you what my favorite game was. You might use it against me. But I always won. It was Monopoly. I knew how to save money and how to spend it, so I always won in the Monopoly games. My cousins would always get angry. He's always winning, he's always winning. I knew how to buy up the best property at the cheapest price. Good training for service now. All right, anyone else? Yes. Is that Devamrita?
Can you wait for the mic, please? It's coming.
You were saying the other day, yesterday, that the melody of like kirtans and stuff, it also invokes certain moods, like different ragas invoke certain moods.
If you're that expert.
Yes. And but you also said to an advanced Vaishnava, the melody doesn't matter at all.
Right.
And I know Ayurveda Prabhu heavily chastised some people when they sung certain melodies, and I was just wondering what your thoughts were on how important like the melody is, or things like that, or it doesn't matter very much.
In the morning, for Mangalarti, we sing the morning tune. More than that, the main thing is don't become full of yourself. Become so creative and innovative that others can't follow the tune. They become caught up in trying to figure out how to follow the melody you sang. You've seen that happen before? The idea is to bring out their bhakti in chanting, not to demonstrate our musical prowess. I'll play a raga you've never heard before. I'll be famous on Facebook. The main thing is use your musical abilities, because this is what happened upon the killing of Aghasura. The demigods were rejoicing, and that rejoicing involved musical instruments. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that if you're a musician, use your musical talents to help people advance in bhakti. Not to assert your glories and assert your prowess. So if you can use melodies and rhythm to enhance the chanting, very good. But still, it's a fact, as you said, for an advanced devotee, they just hear the bhakti. But that doesn't mean, Arcita was mentioning the Ukraine festival. So, I haven't been there recently due to the war situation, but when it was 13,000 devotees, I remember one kirtan session started, and Niranjan Maharaj, my dear friend, had someone, one Ukrainian sannyasi, stand up on the stage in front of 13,000 people and start leading kirtan. He could not keep time with the cartels. He knew nothing about being melodic. It just sounded like totally disjointed, and he was so enthusiastic and radiating bliss. I never forgot that. I know His Holiness Niranjan Maharaj did that just to teach the lesson. Yes, we like nice music, but the main thing is the bhakti. So he's clanging the cartels and singing way off tune and just totally absorbed in ecstasy. And the devotees were just watching and listening, and their mouths were just like. That's a good lesson for us all. If you have musical abilities, use them for Krishna's pleasure, not to enhance your own prestige. I'll be the greatest young Kirtaniya of the coming decade. I'll be a sensation. Okay?
I'll give a quick example from Prabhupada. I wasn't at this particular kirtan, but our dear departed Godmother Sura told us many times. It was like 74, I think, or 75. Srila Prabhupada had told the devotees in advance he was coming to Chicago. So the Chicago president at the time, who was a musician, highly trained, he brought the devotees together every day to get everything perfect. The cartoons, the bumpers, the melody, everything perfect. And he was going to lead Guru Puja. So the Prabhupada came. He came up to the mic. Shri Guru Shamana. Before he got any further, the Prabhupada said, "Who is this Asura?" Prabhupada said, "Tell him to stop." And then he called one sannyasi, just like Maharaja was saying, who was known to, I'm not going to say his name because he's still around, couldn't lead properly, couldn't play properly, but had such devotion. And Prabhupada wanted to make that same point, so he told him to lead. You lead.
Anything else? Yes?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
We have a microphone.
Hare Krishna. In your past couple lectures, I've remembered, like quite often, you really emphasize the importance of tolerating others and sticking together. And I've noticed, like over the past weeks, months, that often I'm able to tolerate other people and tolerate things that have happened, but when it comes to actually forgiving them and accepting somebody back into my heart, I find that I have a bit of trouble with that. So how do you think we can cultivate this quality of forgiveness?
The first symptom of a sadhu is forgiveness. It seems so hard to do, doesn't it? But that's the first symptom of an advanced devotee is forgiveness. Lord Kapila Dev says, Tatikshava Karanika, tolerance, merciful. It's another way of saying forgiveness. It's not easy when you feel wronged, when you feel minimized, when you feel misunderstood. You just want to strike back, right? Where was I speaking about the Rudra principle? Maybe it was
New South Wales March. It was a New South Wales March.
or was it was New Governor?
Yes.
Yes, Rudra manifests through your eyes get hot. And then it manifests in your hands and your feet. It manifests in storms. And also, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says the Rudra principle, anger and destruction, manifests as weapons made from earth, like nuclear weapons, uranium, and what else? That comes from the earth. So, forgiveness is hard to do, but it's a symptom of an advanced devotee. Because when you chant Hare Krishna, you don't want these lumps in the heart of resentment, vengeance, anger. That blocks you from crying out to Krishna. So just for the sake of your chanting, you want to forgive. You don't want to harbor these boulders in your heart. You want the heart to be soft, so it can melt just like butter melts. So yes, we live in Kali Yuga. That means a time of problematic social interactions. So you've been living with other persons for how long now?
About a year.
Yes, so probably some rubbed you the wrong way at times.
Yeah, sometimes.
And you probably rubbed a few the wrong ways.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But overall, living in that situation has been good for your spiritual life, right? So that is the most important thing. Okay?
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Two things. Srila Prabhupada set the example as usual. When he was in Montreal in the late 60s, he had given an evening darshan, and there was one Bengali gentleman who came. He heard about the Swami, and he came. And the entire time of the darshan, he was not only arguing with Prabhupada, he was practically insulting him. And the devotees there were, they just wanted to grab this guy by the neck, and Prabhupada kept, So finally, the guy left. And the Prabhupada said, did anybody get his contact information? And he said, what? We don't want his contact information. Prabhupada was insulting me. Prabhupada said, maybe in the last life I did something to him. So we've been in this material world for so long. We've stepped on so many toes. We've killed so many living entities. So we have to learn to tolerate. Sometimes inadvertently, like yesterday I put on my wellies, I felt something in the shoe. I thought it was a rock. But like this, nothing came out. Put my foot against it. And this huge insect was in there. But in the extraction process, unfortunately, he got injured. Poor thing. So he was lying there, and I felt, like, oh my God, what have I done? You see? So you have to feel like that for every living entity. If you feel like that about insects, how much more feeling will you have for human beings?
Some things Srila Prabhupada didn't tolerate. He had a particularly very low level for tolerating Maya bodies. So I personally experienced, I was in Japan in the year 2000, and one Indian gentleman came up, elderly person, and said, 30 or so years ago, I had an experience with your Swamiji. We, meaning other Indian persons in Japan, had organized a Hindu conference, and we invited sadhus. And so we first had one sadhu speak, and Prabhupada was sitting down in the audience waiting to be called up to be the keynote speaker. And he had his devotees with him. At that time, there were very few devotees in Japan, maybe 8 or so. Bhanu Swami was in, Bhanu Das. And so, actually, he was Bhakta Bruce. So, they're sitting there waiting to go on the stage and probably give a lecture and devotees to do kirtan. As always, the organizers of the Hindu conference, they wanted to use the devotees as an attraction. The dancing white elephants and exotic, and everyone would be curious to see them. So meanwhile, before the devotees could make their presentation and Prabhupada could speak, this Mayavadi sannyasi was going on and on and on. The absolute truth is formless, nameless. The absolute truth is just pure oneness. No form, no activities, no qualities. And as he's going on like that, devotees were seeing Prabhupada started to shake. And the guy was going on and on and on. There's all the oneness. There's no individuality. Let us all merge. Prabhupada was shaking, just increasing. Finally, the guy was going on and on and on. Prabhupada turned to the devotees and said, jump up on the stage and make kirtan. So the devotees just gleefully jumped on the stage with wampers and cartels with Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So the man was looking astonished, like, this is not Hinduism. Hinduism means you tolerate everything and anything. So 30 years later, this Indian gentleman who was by that time elderly, he couldn't forget it. He asked me, can you explain? Your Swamiji, he's a sadhu. How could he respond like that? Sadhus never show anger. Of course, Srila Prabhupada was not showing anger for himself. He was showing anger because his beloved was being insulted. That's a difference. So Narottam Das Thakur says that anger can be used in Krishna's service. You have to be very expert at that. You just can't explode at a moment's notice. But Prabhupada's anger was his beloved Lord Krishna was being insulted. He has no arms, he has no legs, there's no relationship with him. Prabhupada couldn't tolerate that. It's like, what would happen to you if someone very dear to you was being publicly insulted? You just can't sit there and just, yeah. So Prabhupada thought of the most Krishna-conscious thing to do. Send the devotees up, break it all up. So the devotees jumped on the stage. They were happy to do that. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And the man is just like, so that ended him. And then Prabhupada got up and gave his talk, and then the devotees made kirtan. But the Indian guests in the audience, they think this Hindu conference, all paths lead to the same goal. And some of them couldn't understand it to this day. So 30 years later, they're asking me, can you explain this? So that's an example of transcendental anger. Anything else? All right, we say three.
Hare Krishna. How do we prepare our consciousness before going to the holy Dham?
As recommended in the Nectar of Ocean. And also the example of Buddha went to Vrindavan. That's how we were trained before we went to Vrindavan the first time, 76, my first time. When you get to the precincts of Vrindavan, you get down from whatever conveyance you're in and roll in the dust of Vrindavan. Why would one do that unless one has some veneration for the holy Dham? Yeah, if it's your first time, or your second time, or your 20th time, take the dust. Not only of the established holy Dhams, as Lord Chaitanya showed, even the birthplace of the spiritual master. Who's Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master? No, Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master. I saw a lot of hands this morning when Maharaja asked who's read the CC. Who's Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master? So the first time he visited the spiritual master's birthplace, he took earth from that place and he kept eating a little bit every day as he went along with his travels.
Don't do it if you visit New York.
I'll tell you exactly where. Not just any place in New York.
I'll tell you, someone asked about anger and tolerance. He mentioned the first time he went to India was 76. I didn't go until 77. Why? Because we were both working for the BBT, and the BBT director asked me, Arcita works so hard, he's the only one who can handle that computer. You wouldn't mind, even though you're a senior to him, you wouldn't mind if he went to India this year and you went next year.
I didn't know, I just found out. I would have said, Mars,
So he went to India in 76 and I stayed back. So I had to swallow that. All right, other questions? Dasha, pray. We're just going back and forth between the lady side and the men's side.
What's the qualification of one's chanting in order to be able to solve all problems, and especially in regards to mental health?
Okay, mental health. In 76, there was one psychiatrist who came to the New York temple, and he asked proper permission to examine the devotees because he wanted to prove to his colleagues that Hare Krishna is not crazy. He said, many of my colleagues think that these Hare Krishna devotees are crazy, but I want to prove that they're not. So he asked proper permission to interview the devotees and examine them. And Prabhupada said no. He said, even if you think they're crazy, if they're chanting 16 rounds a day and following these principles, they're properly situated. So that was Prabhupada's response. And later on, after Prabhupada left, that same guy came around, kept hanging around the community, and he openly said, you know what's wrong with you Hare Krishnas? You don't know how to let your hair down. When you have problems, go out and have a beer. You know, like that? That's their recommendation. So I'm very, very cautious about interacting with these so-called mental health professionals. They don't even know what the mind is. Ask them, what is the mind? You know, does it something that is generated by chemical activities in the brain? Is that what the mind is? We know that the mind is a separate material energy. Mind, intelligence, ego, these are the subtle material elements. They don't even know that. They're thinking the mind is something arising from chemical interactions. How can you trust such a person? Therefore, their only recourse, their only recommendation for mental problems is drugs. Take this drug, take that drug. And I had personal experience when I was in college. I had a girlfriend that went to Brown, and she had some mental problems. They gave her Haldol, which is a very heavy animal tranquilizer. And I saw a budding, very vivacious young lady turn into practically a stone. So that's their recommendation. Drugs. It's a thing. The mind is something, gross material.
I would say that, as Srila Prabhupada said, understanding the mind is a machine, just like the body's a machine. If you break a bone, you go to a doctor who can patch you up. If you have a broken mind, you go to a psychological doctor who may help you to patch it up. But it's true, you're neither the body nor the mind. Chanting Hare Krishna does solve all problems, but what is the quality of your chanting? Agasura just had a moment's thought of devotion and he went to Vaikuntha. What's the strength and quality of our devotion, whether it's for one moment or for a lifetime? So, yes, chanting Hare Krishna can solve all problems, no doubt about it. But what is the strength and purity of your chanting? If you're chanting purely just by saying the holy name once, you're free from material existence and situated in pure love of Krishna just by once chanting. So yes, it is true, and don't doubt it. Chanting Hare Krishna solves all problems. But then you have to be honest about your level of chanting and practical. For the sake of your service, you may have to patch up your body. For the sake of your service, you may have to patch up your mind. But you should know you're not the body, you're not the mind. But you have to keep your equipment in order. So if I've got some physical ailment, I go to the medical doctor, and if he's able to patch me up, I don't just storm out of the office and say, well, I'm not the body, so I'm not thanking you. But at the same time, I don't think he's solved my main problem in life. What's my main problem in life? Where is Krishna? Where is my relationship with Krishna? That's my main problem. So yes, patch up the body, all right. If someone needs their mind patched up, very good. But don't think that that has solved your ultimate problems in life. So we take the best of what's available. If you know the best doctor, if you know the best psychologist, we have our Rasayatra Devi. Is he here? Let's send everyone your way. So do the necessary, but don't. So I think Arcita Prabhu is getting at what you have faith in. Don't think that such medical doctors and psychologists have all the answers. Rasyaksha Devi and I often communicate about the latest controversies and complexities of psychology. Do we know this? Do we know that? They're wondering amongst themselves. Does this really work? But you have to cut wood with the best saw around. And yes, you do have to cut wood, meaning you have to deal with your situation. But just remember, you're not the body, you're not the mind. And your real problem is forgetfulness of Krishna. Just like we have our dentist devotee here. So shall we say, we're not coming to take care of our teeth, we're not our teeth. And I've seen studies that say that dentists are the most unregulated in terms of surveillance of what they're doing, oversight of what they're doing, whereas doctors have much more oversight. Maybe it's different in New Zealand. He's not worried about it. But if you have a tooth problem and it's interfering with your service, what is it better to do? Just writhe in pain? Oh, I'm not this body. Oh. And not doing any service? Or is it better to go see the dentist and have him sort you out? Even though you're not your teeth and you're not your body. Similarly, you're not your mind. So we don't want devotees neglecting to take care of their physical or mental health. Especially in this day and age when mental health problems amongst adolescents and youth, young adults, is through the roof. I was just seeing a report from the USA of incidents of self-harm amongst persons between the age of 12 and 29. Incidents that hospitals report. The numbers are up 82%. 82% increase of self-harm, as at least as much as reported to hospitals. And the team of medical experts, psychological experts in the USA, psychological doctors, have said, basically we recommend anyone under the age of 60 should get an examination for anxiety disorder and depression. Anyone under 60. So this is what we're dealing with. So yes, chanting Hare Krishna solves all problems, but how pure and effective is your chanting? You can't just go snick, snick, lama, lama. All my problems solved. Any other questions? Balidaitraj Prabhu.
What does it mean when Mahaprabhu says lower than a blade of grass or a straw in the street? And how do we develop that kind of humility?
What are some things that you think you do well at?
Music.
Play mridanga? You can outlast anyone, right? So here's what I do. Whatever service I attempt to do for Krishna, I'm thinking, right now, somewhere in the world, there's someone who's doing this same service 10 times better. In the wide world of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan mission, right now someone is speaking better than me with more devotion. That's a practical way for you to begin following Lord Chaitanya's instruction, Shanada, peace, sweet Chaitanya, lower than a straw in the street, more tolerant than a tree. And you want to really get a crash course in tolerance, start doing outreach, just like you did book distribution for many years. Did you meet with rejection? So you tolerated it. So as soon as you start to distribute Lord Chaitanya's mercy, this way, that way, the other way, you'll have to become tolerant. It's not that people are going to come running up to you. I'm in Maya, save me. Have any of you experienced that? It may happen, very rare. When I started the first substantial conversation I had with a devotee, my first question I thought was just an ordinary question. I just said, do you have Srimad Bhagavatam? I thought that was a routine statement, routine inquiry. But how many times a day does that happen to you? So they're not falling at your feet saying, save me, I'm in Maya. They think they're healthy. But still, you go on as a humble servant of Lord Chaitanya. That's tolerance. And as for thinking you're lower than the straw in the street, it's hard for you to visualize in this day and age that cultural example of the straw in the street. But you can at least start thinking that you like playing mridanga, there's always someone playing somewhere better than you at the same moment. You might think you're very handsome, but somewhere it could be someone's more handsome than you. You might think you're so fortunate because you became a devotee after you started your bhakti practice. What age? 15. And you entered the brahmacharya ashram at what age? So you might think, Paramahansa. But somewhere there's someone who started their bhakti practice earlier than you and is still in the brahmacharya ashram. So, that's the glory of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan mission. We always think somewhere there's someone better. Krishna is tolerating you. Just like when Arcita Prabhu was giving class, I'm thinking, he's got such an analytical mind, I could never do that. He's using his engineering propensity perfectly in Krishna's service. I was telling him today, my mother first thought I was going to be an engineer. But then quickly it turned out that that's not my thing. But he uses his engineering propensity so wonderfully in Krishna's service. This morning he had to handle a crisis in Los Angeles that apparently one 13-year-old girl disappeared from home. She lived in an apartment across the street. So he's got cameras set up on the whole street because, as he explained before, New Dwarka is at both sides of a city block. So they called him up, can you check your cameras and see when this 13-year-old girl left and where's she going? And so he was able to do that. He's got cameras that see at night. They change their, what do you call it?
Their mode of operation. It's a night vision.
They changed the night vision. He's got all that figured out. So here he is in New Zealand, and devotees called him up. We got a security problem in Los Angeles. What do you think? Thumbs up, right? He's in the police. Oh. So he's using his abilities in Krishna service. I can never figure out all that stuff. So always there's someone doing something better than you. That understanding that is humility. All right, last question. From the ladies' side, okay. Gabby.
Thank you so much. I guess this was extending off of what you were saying Prabhu, about being present. And I just have a question about Sankirtan and about how, you're on the street for many hours and you can get quite fried out. You can get quite impersonal in the way that you start to approach people and the way that you can really, just keep saying the same thing, and really start to not connect as much with your words. So I'm just wondering how we can really be present, like you said, on Sankirtan, so we can, have a more personal conversation with that person, so they can really connect to the bhakti. Trying to share.
In any personal interaction with devotees, I always try to pray to Krishna, please let me deal with this devotee in a way that their bhakti increases. And certainly when you're doing that service of outreach, book distribution, at the Bhakti Lounge, preparing prasad for Krishna food, you have a heartfelt desire that the books, the prasad, the kirtan will touch your words, your presence will touch people's hearts. So you just keep that meditation. Sometimes, yes, you get rubbed the wrong way. Someone gives you a rough time. Get out of here. Get a boyfriend. And you feel like snapping back, right? Get a life. But understand tolerance. What do you expect a diseased person to say? Their consciousness is a mess. It's not that you started chanting Hare Krishna as soon as you popped out of your mother's womb, right? So you had your adventures, yes? So they have their adventures. You ended your adventures quicker than they did, but still. And even if you had no adventures in this lifetime, what about the previous lifetime? So by reading the books, you'll become wiser and your tolerance and patience will increase. But we all know what you mean, that sometimes outreach, even to devotees, becomes a thankless task. You heard what I went through when I was glorifying him and his ex launched a massive attack on me. Here I am, oh, your husband is so wonderful. He was far her superior in terms of age and seniority in bhakti. She was a young little thing. So here I am glorifying her husband. He can take you back to Godhead. I really meant what I was saying. And then later she launches a whole attack on me. Devamrita Swami said I have no value, that my only value is my husband. She started a whole uproar on social media. So I had to end it all by going to her and apologizing. So what do you think of that? So in dealing with devotees, sometimes you'll experience a great need for tolerance. I felt the best thing to end the uproar she set off was just to apologize to her. I didn't expect Arcita to do anything about it. You know, at that time he was married to her. What can a married man say? So I didn't even ask him. He just gave me an embarrassed look like. So I didn't want to put him on the hot seat, so I had to take it all on me. I'm sorry. Of course, as I said, other persons in the Los Angeles community, especially the ladies, they came up to me. We're outraged that she has done such a thing. If you had said something like that about my husband, I would have been so happy. And of course in India, because this went international in India, the Indian devotees in India were outraged. How can they treat Maharaj like that? Look what this Mataji has done. He handled the situation so nicely. He stood up for Dharma. What do you think? What do you think? So, we'll all encounter situations like that in our bhakti careers. As I tell devotees, sometimes you have to swallow the soap and blow bubbles. You understand? It doesn't make sense in German, does it? Zyper, soap. You swallow the zyper, and then because there's liquid in your stomach, out comes bubbles from your mouth. All right. Time for,
I'll say something.
Yes, please.
There are two extremes in distribution, if I heard you correctly. There's the formulaic and the decidedly not formulaic. So I've never been a full-time book distributor, but I've had the good fortune of going out with some of the best. So on the non-formulaic side, there was our goddess Mother Glory, and some of you may have heard of. If not, you should research her. I went out with her, and she had the uncanny ability of sizing somebody up immediately and going for the jugular. If they were a business person, she would say something like about business. If they were a professor, a math professor, she would ask them immediately, do you know what is absolute math? And then they would freeze, because their math, they want to know. 1 plus 1 equals 1, 1 minus 1 equals 1. So she was like that. She would just tune into the person and find exactly the right thing. There are others who go by a formula, but if the formula is heartfelt, it works. Most of the devotees that have gone out with her have a formula like this. Excuse me, are you a professor or a movie star? Like that, you know, something. And they freeze, they smile. You know, and once you get them to smile, you're in. So, yes, you can use a formula, but if your intention is to distribute the books, Krishna will make that formula work. And if you're so advanced that you can be unformulated like Mother Gauri, he'll give you the right thing to say for each person, so that each person feels like he's approaching that individual.
That will take time, but certainly it can happen to you. It's a gradual art, Srila Prabhupada explained. In the meantime, he told us this in New York. He said, in the meantime, don't diminish your book distribution while you're waiting for the perfect line, the perfect approach. It's a gradual art. He said, actually, you can sell these books just by glorifying Krishna, but to do that is a gradual art. So in the meantime, in other words, if you have to rely on formulas and lines, okay, because we don't want your book distribution to diminish while you're trying for perfection overnight. All right, let's have some kirtan.